Hi everybody, it's Tim with Engadget, and this is the BlackBerry Q10. It's the second device running BlackBerry 10, and the first one with the physical keyboard, but actually it's running BlackBerry 10.1, something we'll talk about in just a minute. First, let's give you a quick tour around the device. Up front, we've got a 3.1-inch Super AMOLED display, 720 by 720 resolution at 330 ppi, so pretty high resolution, and of course the full QWERTY keyboard up front. Go down toward the bottom, that's where the speaker and the microphone are. Pretty powerful speaker on this, as you would expect from a BlackBerry. Turn to the right side, we've got the three-way volume rocker with the mute button in the middle, which is a great touch. On top, power lock button and 3.5mm headphone jack. Then on the left side, micro HDMI and micro USB for charging. Turn around in the back, there's an 8-megapixel webcam, very much like the Z10 that came before. A 2-megapixel webcam is front-facing. Yes, the battery cover is removable, and you can remove the battery inside. Also in here is a micro SIM slot and a micro SD slot for expanding the 16 gigs of built-in storage. There's also 2 gigabytes of RAM and a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core processor. The overall look of the device sits somewhere between the Z10 and the Bold 9900 that came before. Definitely it looks more similar to the Bold, but it's got a lot of changes too. Gone is the stainless steel rim, and though it does have a glass fiber back like the 9900, it doesn't have the taper, which actually makes the 9900 feel like a thinner phone, despite the fact that it is fractionally thicker than the new Q10. You also notice a difference in the keyboard. On the 9900, the keys are curved to follow the shape of your thumbs. However, on the Q10, the keys go straight across. This gives the chassis more rigidity, and indeed, the Q10 does feel like a very, very sturdy device. Because of the difference in shape of the keyboards, we did find ourselves liking typing on the 9900 a bit more, but still the typing experience on the Q10 is very good. The keys are still shaped and fall on your thumbs very well, and touch typing is very easy, especially if you are a practiced BlackBerry user. Also, the keyboard doesn't rattle like some earlier BlackBerries, and overall this feels like a very, very well-made device, the kind of thing you can drop on the ground and not worry too much. Up front, we have a 3.1-inch 720 by 720 Super AMOLED display. Yes, it is perfectly square. 720 by 720 resolution in that size means 330 pixels per inch, a little bit lower than the Z10, but ultimately we're really pleased with this display. Looks great even out in the sunlight where AMOLED displays have suffered in the past. It's very easily viewable, colors are bright, reproduction is very good. It is a pen-tiled display. This is not Super AMOLED Plus, but still the color reproduction is quite good, and overall this is one of the best displays we've ever seen in a BlackBerry. The camera setup in the Q10 is exactly the same as found on the Z10. Up front, that means you've got a 2-megapixel camera capable of recording 720p HD video. And around back, there's an 8-megapixel camera that can do up to 1080p video or 720p with video stabilization. Overall, because of that, we found very similar camera performance to what we saw on the Z10, which means you'll be taking decent pictures, but not great ones. BlackBerry has added on an HDR feature in the 10.1 update, which does mean that you'll get better pictures in high contrast areas. But overall, we didn't see it making a huge difference in the resulting pictures. The Q10 is the first device to be running the 10.1 update to BlackBerry 10. We're told that the Z10 will get that update in a few weeks. 10.1 doesn't bring any major changes to the operating system, but it does make some important little tweaks. For example, you can now download attachments. You can now copy and paste phone numbers and paste them directly into the dialer, and there are a lot of other little tweaks as well that makes the phone operating system a little bit nicer to use. However, BlackBerry has not fixed some of the more glaring issues that we found when we reviewed the Z10 a little while back. Most notably, the navigation system is still exactly the same as it was before, which is to say, not very good. However, 10.1 does bring some tweaks that are very well optimized for the QWERTY keyboard. You can now, for example, type email from anywhere within the operating system, plus the name of a contact, and it will generate a new email sending to that person. You can also type things like call or text, and it will execute those commands for you, something that you couldn't do on the Z10 for obvious reasons, and definitely a nice thing to do with your new physical QWERTY keyboard. And of course, one of the most important aspects of a phone operating system is the apps that you can run on it, and we're sorry to say that the app selection hasn't really improved that much since the launch of the Z10. Yes, there are certainly some new things in BlackBerry world to play with, but there aren't any major new additions since then, and that is a little bit disappointing. The Q10 is running the same 1.5 GHz dual-core processor inside, paired with 2 GB of RAM, again just like the Z10 that came before. However, performance does seem to be a little bit better on the Q10 than on the Z10, which we think might be down to the software update in 10.1, but it may also be down to some other internal optimizations. For most tasks, this is a reasonably well-performing phone. Apps tend to launch quickly, and web pages render fairly quickly. However, it's certainly not a powerhouse. The Need for Speed game that is loaded on here does tend to struggle at times, and it's certainly not a 3D gaming machine. While we definitely like the typing experience on the Q10, it's among the best keyboards in production right now. We still found ourselves liking the all-touch Z10 slightly better. if only because the main gesture of BlackBerry 10 is much easier to execute on the Z10 than it is on the Q10. To go home, you have to swipe up from below on the bottom of the bezel. And it's actually pretty tricky to do here with the keyboard because the bezels are so slim on this device. And we were even slightly faster typing on the all-touch predictive Z10 keyboard than we were on the physical keyboard of the Q10. But there's certainly nothing like the tactile experience of typing on a good QWERTY keyboard on a smartphone, and indeed the QWERTY keyboard here is quite good. If you're someone who insists on having a QWERTY keyboard on your device, then obviously the Q10 is for you. But everybody else, we think you'll probably be happier with the Z10. Again, this is the BlackBerry Q10 review on Engadget.